Welcome to another edition of AFTS Live. Gabriel, we're so happy to have you here with us. And Foster, to start, we'll do introduction. This is Zekarias, co-founder of Africa Fintech Summit, accompanied by Gabriel Ologunwa, who's the Assistant Vice President for Flutterwave, covering the global expansion and payment partnership for West Africa. Welcome, Gabriel. And Foster is here, who's a government and partnership lead for Africa Fintech Summit. We have this AFTS Live covering actually the recent announcement of Flutterwave's acquisition of Mono, that is the open banking startup in West Africa. That will be what we'll be discussing, but we also have additional announcement by Flutterwave last week. That is a stablecoin as a wallet. We're gonna take that as well. So maybe we can start with a quick introduction. Gabriel and Foster, if you can introduce yourself briefly, and we'll move on to the questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Zekarias, for having me, and real pleasure to be here. My name is Gabriel, and I lead Flutterwave's partnership program across Anglophone and Francophone West Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Foster.
All right, thank you, Zach, and nice to meet you, Gabriel. Good morning, everyone, and good day, everyone listening. My name is Foster Awintiti. I lead government relations and partnerships at the Africa Fintech Summit. I also double as a management consultant across sector, focusing on market expansion. So I'm very excited to see some of these mergers and acquisitions happening on the continent, especially in January, which definitely sets a good tone for the year and signals investors and stakeholders who are interested on the continent and some of these engagements to start making moves. The chess game is on, so I look forward to diving deep into this conversation with you all. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gabriel and Foster. So to start with, Gabriel, so Flutterwave is the largest payment infrastructure in the continent, right? So helping not only African businesses have the payment system within the continent, but helping the African businesses go global, and global businesses actually expand and solve their payment solutions in Africa. But after 10 years, you just made an announcement earlier this month that you are moving to the banking realm by acquisition of the open banking startup Mono. So the first question is that, so what does this acquisition of Mono means for your clients, partners, and those using a Flutterwave platform? So what does that acquisition mean, and what is the additional layers that is adding to the various services Flutterwave is giving to its clients?
Thank you very much for bringing this up. So what does this acquisition mean? Like I was just mentioning before the session started, our objective at Flutterwave is to be the operating system for payments in Africa. I mean, we are currently the financial highway, and we want to go a layer deeper, building the operating system for Africa. And the acquisition of Mono is the strategic first step to accomplishing that. Now, as at today, if we all understand and agree, right, that fragmentation is a major problem for us in Africa. And when the ecosystem opened up, say 10 years ago, I mean, what really was being solved was a just payment, which was a system of structural inefficiencies, right? And I mean, it is expected that would be the first step, right, to solving those problems, because the infrastructure pretty much did not even exist to start with, right? Now we have done payments at scale, and the next thing is to really grow that scale. Unfortunately, at scale, commerce does not fail because payments are slow, right? Payment trust is fragmented across institutions, and that trust layer which is missing is what causes payments at scale really to fail. And so what we see happening today is identity sits with the banks and telcos, transaction data sitting with fintechs, compliance with regulators, reconciliation with the merchants,
Yeah.
And this is really a major headache. But right now, we are at that point within the ecosystem where we've reached that transaction density threshold, right? Volumes are scaling, regulations are evolving. And so we are at the point where commerce and payment generally is beginning to really demand trust and predictability. And so this is actually why we are now focusing on becoming an operating system for the payment ecosystem, right? So that we really can solve this problem. Like I said, the mono investment reflects a deliberate first steps to evolving from payments as a feature into, infrastructure as a platform, where we're able to integrate identity, account-to-account flows, and financial data into one single system.
Fantastic, great. So from a practical point of view, for example, a merchant that is using Flutterwave in Lagos, or a remittance and corporate service provider exporting goods from Nairobi or South Africa to China. So what difference do they notice from the mono acquisition? And then from a front-end point of view, from a process point of view, from efficiency point of view, what would be some of the visible differences now?
So a handful of differences, and I'll just zoom in on a few critical ones. So one of the very critical things that will be different now will be identity verification, right? And this variable, which is missing, is the bedrock or the primary reason why risk and fraud possibility exists, right? And so if identity verification becomes a feature, no longer a request, it becomes default, then the risks and associated costs, to missing identity or being unable to verify identity, those things are eliminated. So transactions flow more seamlessly as against trying to verify identity, that is already a bottleneck. Then another thing that you see is merchants can now embed, finance products, right? For example, trade credit, right? Because I know who this customer is, I have their transaction detail, I have their transaction history, I have every information that I need, either to track them, to monitor, or to even be able to do a credit risk assessment. So you can begin to embed finance products into your existing, service offerings. And then, of course, trade management optimization for operations for a lot of these merchants. Because remember, you are operating across countries, across jurisdictions, and so managing FX, multiple currencies is a major headache for a lot of institutions. And so this infrastructure takes out that layer. And then when we look at some of the merchants who are maybe specifically tech companies, what this does for them is now one API, right, that plugs you or gives you access to a complete financial infrastructure and not just one solution or one product, right? And then, of course, maybe better monetization through subscription for those merchants who are in the subscription business. So you see things like a drastic drop in transaction failures due to insufficient funds. So these are some of the, quick wins that we expect merchants to enjoy, right?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's just how much power when you have data sitting in one platform instead of being siloed across different infrastructure, so that you can really deliver value to customers. Now, let's just zoom out of Flutterwave and then focus on the ecosystem. So last year and this year at our editorial for Africa Fintech Summit, we said that fintechs are going to acquire microfinance banking license because this is exactly the kind of friction that they will solve. And we started the year with Flutterwave's acquisition of Mono, Paystack acquiring another microfinance bank, and in East Africa you will see Safaricom and Airtel applying for kind of banking service with the as a securities exchange. So Do you see this acquisition of Flutterwave, Paystack, the telecom companies, into the banking realm just a standalone activity, or like looking at the continent, do you see that this is going to be a kind of a movement where fintechs will be moving into the banking space from an ecosystem point of view?
Yes. So, absolutely yes to your question, right? And this shift follows a historical pattern, right? Payment processing, like I said, is always the entry point, right? Because it's the closest to delivering immediate economic value to customers, right? But over time, pure processors, usually will now face three major pressure points: margin compression, regulatory scrutiny when they try to operate at scale, and then of course customers start to demand for adjacent capabilities. And so this then forces players within the ecosystem to involve. So infrastructure platforms then begin to emerge when fintechs realize that payments is just one meaningful, it's meaningful only within one broad control plane, right? This does not necessarily require that the fintech should become a bank in the traditional sense. So this acquisitions does not necessarily signal that. Instead, what it means, or what is really happening, is the objective to embed banking grade capabilities and controls into financial native systems. And so if you look at it from a scale economics standpoint as well, what African merchants have done, which is really not affordable, is integrate into, say, maybe 15 different service providers, one for payments, one for KYC, one for banking, one for credits, and that's not feasible, at scale. So right now they need one integration that works everywhere. And so this mono acquisition really specifically addresses this kind of issues, because open banking API then provides the connectivity layer that makes digital banking infrastructure actually usable at scale, right? Therefore allowing businesses to be able to access banking services without having to build individual banking integration. So we expect to see more of this happen. I mean, it's just part of the evolution. And of course, for us at Flutterwave, we want to be at the frontier of this shift towards infrastructure first fintech. And of course, again, by virtue of our scale, we believe that we are effectively positioned to be at the frontier.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And the areas we touched of the frictions you avoided ultimately is going to give that trust to your partner. So trust is a currency when you are dealing in the financial services. So instead of partners and customers dealing with multiple of partners in their single transaction experience life cycle, so to speak, now they are just dealing only with Flutterwave, from identity to fraud prevention and credit monitoring, you name it. All of that is going to be in one single silo. So exactly. How would that trust will translate into faster onboarding and also more customer acquisition? So now customers, instead of dealing with 5 different partners, some of which are outside the realm of Flutterwave because you cannot really sit on the data, for example, or credit monitoring or identity because it sits on another partner. Now you're holding the whole suite of armor, so to speak, to serve your customers. So that should add to the trust and faster onboarding. So how would you expect this translating into faster onboarding, additional customer acquisition in the years to come?
Oh, absolutely, because instant trust, eliminates the need for compensating systems. I mean, having multiple systems, because in untrusted ecosystems, businesses would typically rely on, delays, manual reviews, things like collateral, and of course, conservative limits to contain risks that are associated with limited visibility, right? And so, but when this trust is now introduced at the infrastructure level, you expect decisions to become automated and very fast. So authentication is automatic, credits can be priced dynamically, even settlement of transactions can happen real time. And then of course, cross-border transaction also, can clear without losses. So historically, markets with trusted infrastructures would grow faster because capital circulates much more quicker and much more efficiently. But the real key, right, is for this trust to remain implicit and not customer or user facing, so that user can experience a seamless, onboarding experience, right? While the system, the infrastructure absorbs the complexity that powers that trust and simplicity.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Foster, would love to hear your viewpoint when it comes to trust. Trust as a currency, something that we've been amplifying at our summit, and you've dealt with several fintechs and also banking operators across the continent. So having trust as instant, how would you say that it will impact the ecosystem?
All right, thank you very much. I think very exciting. Again, like I mentioned in my opening remarks, this is a great signal. Historically, if you have followed Flutterwave's journey, you realize how important this acquisition is to correcting the narrative, if you put it. As you grow and scale fast when it comes to payments, your vulnerability increases over time. And with the fragmentation across market and non-uniformity around KYC compliance, etc., you start to expose yourself. Certain limitations around tools you can use in one country and its limitation in other countries because of licensing or compliance issues can become very painful part of your process. So acquiring what we call the African plate definitely signals the market that, hey, you are now a much more trusted system than you probably was before, because from a merchant acquiring standpoint, the biggest issue is, are you able to verify the originating customer? Are you able to verify the beneficiary? Are you able to verify the source of funds, etc.? All of that that's involved in it. Being able to provide an infrastructure like this definitely signals confidence from a merchant standpoint, and from an open banking standpoint, gives you an upper hand to play. I think I see Flutterwave migrating from best in class when it comes to payments, when it comes to reach in the market, to becoming an open infrastructure player that allows every other service provider to rely on. Because since Flutterwave's emergence in the market, you've seen a big boost in e-commerce in Africa, by extension allowing easier collections across platforms. Recent announcements around using stablecoins on the back of, and stablecoins hesitation has always also been around KYC or compliance and all of that. So that risk factor for me is a big confidence and a big boost when it comes to trust. And yeah, I think those would be my initial reactions to what I've seen as a signal into the market. But the biggest question I have for you, Gabriel, is around, like, what should customers expect to see? What's some of the biggest change they should see firsthand in terms of an enhanced customer experience, seeing that now you have Mono in your ecosystem?
So thanks. So now that we have Mono in our ecosystem, like I said, customer onboarding becomes very seamless, very cheap as well, right? Because whatever customer you are trying to onboard most likely already exists within the ecosystem. Whether it's banks or the telcos or the fintechs, our customer acquisition strategies are different. I mean, subject due to maybe licensing, business model or playbook or whatever it is, So, but when there is a particular customer, maybe in one remote village, for example, that a bank within the ecosystem wants to onboard, maybe to extend credit, right? The fintech or a fintech within that ecosystem is highly likely to have that customer on their books, And that's because of maybe the customer, the fintechs reach, playing interland within ecosystems that are financially excluded. And so all that groundwork has been done already, and the bank can just immediately, easily onboard. Or vice versa, right? Maybe it's a customer who is in the books of the banks, and a merchant wants to extend credit. You're meeting his customer for the first time, right? You don't have to do the groundwork. And so when I was researching, I noticed that historically, when we have open banking, customer acquisition cost typically drops between you typically experience a 30% to 70% drop in customer acquisition. So imagine that kind of money remaining within the ecosystem, right? So it makes a huge difference, of course, to us as Flutterwave and to the ecosystem as a whole. So this is a real win for us and for the ecosystem.
Should we anticipate this as a signal for expanding into lending and credit for the retail, within the retail or mass market, seeing that you already do that for businesses and merchants within your ecosystem?
Oh, absolutely. Because remember that credit is one of the major levers that really unlocks economic value and wealth creation, right? Whether it's at retail level or even at merchant level, you want to purchase or do transactions, but this is what you have within your wallet, right? But because credit is accessible, you can double or triple or 10x what you intended to do. So imagine the scale when you extrapolate that at scale. So it's major economic value and wealth creation unlock, not just for the players within the ecosystem, but for the everyday African as a whole. So yes.
Fantastic. Zach, I don't know if you want to take the conversation on the stable coins before I jump into that question, that area.
Yes, indeed. But love that addition about the credit and lending. So let's move on to the stable coins. So you made another huge announcement last week with your partners. Now Flutterwave is able to provide a stablecoin wallet to its clients. That is a major news. So basically, what African fintechs, including Flutterwave, have been doing a stablecoin is a stablecoin sits at the back, right, where for cross-border payment, remittance, you've been using that to provide instant and cost-effective cross-border payment services. Now, Flutterwave is actually putting it in front and offering stablecoin wallet to its customers. So in the past, anyone who wants to have a stablecoin wallet goes to exchange, right? From Binance to Coinbase to Yellow Card, you go to exchange. Now Flutterwave is saying that you can have that wallet services. So can you tell us about that partnership and what it means for the clients and why stablecoin as a wallet?
Now, fantastic question. Remember that I mentioned that our objective at Flutterwave is to make payments possible for all of our customers and merchants. And that means whatever payment possibility or reality you so desire, our objective is to make that available and accessible to every African. Now we're beginning to see an uptick in stablecoin adoption. So that, means that it's a natural move to just, move into that space and make that capability accessible. But one thing I really want to zoom in on is, remember that I also mentioned that scale is one thing that we are also trying to solve for by becoming the operating system of the payment ecosystem, right? And I mean, stablecoin is one payment option, but one challenge that we are seeing with stablecoins is adoption at scale. And the real challenge is that stablecoin solves settlement speed problem, but it fails to scale adoption, and what is missing really is that trust level, right? Especially for enterprise merchants. Enterprises usually would require traceability, compliance, integration with their existing systems. Now, our partnership with Mono, addresses these visibility and viability issues that the enterprises have with this stablecoin option. And I mean, we don't need to make a case for stablecoin adoption in Africa. It's already clear, right? Exactly, it's already clear. Currency, volatility protection, and all of that, right? But with Mono coming on board, Mono provides a verification layer, right? That connects stablecoin transactions to real accounts, to verified and verifiable identities, and of course to auditable records. And so this, we expect, should transform stablecoins from parallel systems into compliant settlement rails. So that's what we expect to see, in the near future.
Fantastic. Foster, I think you have additional points on stablecoin.
Yeah, I'm very curious I was trying to understand, but I think Gabriel has answered my question around how it interfaces with the ecosystem, the Flutterwave ecosystem, and beyond that, what it means for the general market. And for cross-border, is this a strategic play for you guys from a cross-border standpoint in terms of liquidity management, etc., or it's really about giving the customer more options to move and send money?
Oh, absolutely, it is, because again, treasury and risk management complexity is one of the concerns of big players within the system, and so enterprise grade treasury management is a major requirement, right, for those kind of merchants. And so combining Mono's banking data access with our infrastructure, we're able to create enterprise level treasury capabilities. And another good thing with stable coins is it takes away that FX currency differentiation problem completely away. I mean, it's a universally accepted currency. And so it really simplifies a lot of things for, large scale players. And so absolutely yes to your question.
Fantastic. So we're on the mark of 30 minutes. So maybe at the concluding question and comment, you already started 2026 with two big announcements: stablecoin as a wallet and also open banking acquisition. And you're also celebrating your 10-year anniversary this year. So what does the future holds for Flutterwave, and what can we expect for the rest of the year? And any message that the move that Flutterwave made is sending to regulators, policymakers, partners within the ecosystem. So what message would you like to share? And we'll conclude with that, and having Foster's view on the comments as well. Gabriel, over to you.
Right, thank you. So for us at Flutterwave, all right, what we want to do and establish is to operate at the connectivity tissue, right? Abstracting and eliminating complexity while we ensure reliability and simplicity in the ecosystem, because this really just mirrors how mature markets function today. We are just adapting it, to African realities. And if I can just back up a bit, on Flutterwave's journey, initially we were just a payment platform, enabling Africans to accept payments, in different currencies. And then we evolved to a scaling infrastructure, because now payment volumes were growing, and then we needed to support multiple payment options. And then so we added things like mobile money, which is also why we are adding stablecoins as well. From that, evolved to a platform, because now merchants and customers needed, complete commerce infrastructure. So we started to add things like, the currency exchange and embed finance tools. Right now, we are at the stage where we are building the operating system foundation. And the challenge that we are tackling is fragmentation, right? So we are trying to unify the financial infrastructure in order to be able to unlock commerce potential, right? And again, this mono acquisition is strategic to achieving that. And of course, to the regulators and the ecosystem as a whole. So what we are trying to signal is institutional seriousness, right? African fintech is no longer experimenting at the edges of payments. They are now building core infrastructures. And so this is a call to invite regulators to collaborate, institutions also to integrate, join us in this journey, and investors as well to think long term, right? Historically, this kind of transition marks the moment where financial systems stop being fragmented and start becoming durable. That is what we are achieving.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Foster.
I think general remarks on the whole play so far. Q1, very exciting. Good time to see some of these big moves being announced. Obviously, these things happened last quarter, if I'm not wrong. But great way to start the year, great way to signal what the market is going to look like. And from the customer standpoint, very excited to see what these new features are going to look like within the Flutterwave ecosystem. More importantly, I'm excited to hear about what partnerships moving forward is going to look like. What does expansion? I think you're in 30 African countries now, right?
35 African countries.
35 African countries. What does it look like from a Pan-African play, from a Francophone African perspective, all of that? And I'm curious to see what that will look like as the year comes to an end here.
Fantastic. And I love your point, Gabriel, about institutional seriousness. That is the message that is being sent to the ecosystem clearly. Congratulations on the mono acquisition and the stablecoin wallet issuance. And we definitely look forward to discussing more at our upcoming Fintech Summit here in Washington, D.C. on April 15 and Kigali, November. So thank you so much for your time, Gabriel and Foster. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.